What's up everybody, this is the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo. So about the Nismo version here, well of course it's the more track focused, aggressive version of the Z here. And as far as the styling goes, I think they did a pretty good job on it. You know, I think that it's a little more aggressive looking. It's about an inch wider. It's almost an inch longer thanks to the body kit that it now has, which you can see up front there is a little more aggressive, a little pointier there than a regular Z, and looks really nice. I also like the red striping you have at the bottom of it there. Coming down to the sides, you also have these raised 19-inch forged wheels that look great and are hiding some larger front brakes there as well. It looked pretty cool. And you know, the side profile here, again, just a little more aggressive with these side skirts. And then going out to the back, you have a much more aggressive rear bumper, and it's a little bit wider there for the hips, I think, too, because it has to hide some extra wide tires there, a little bit wider than a regular Z. And I love that you have the nice exhaust tips there, you know, towards the middle, and a little bit of a larger spoiler there in the back as well. But overall, I think as far as the styling goes, they did a pretty good job here on the Nismo version. The interior in the Z Nismo is mostly the same as a regular Z, so I'm not going to go over the whole Z interior again. I already covered that in my last review. But as far as the unique things here for the Nismo version, the main thing you get are these Recaro seats. And they actually are pretty comfortable for the seat bottom. They have some nice padding to them. And the torso support is great. They're really nice, tight bolsters. As long as you're not too large, I think these seats are really going to hug you in nicely and be great. The problem though is the seat back doesn't have much padding to it, and so combined with the stiff suspension, these seats don't really have much give for your back support. They're definitely on the stiffer side even compared to other Recaros. You know, like the Mustang offers Recaros. You know, you get Recaros in some of the other competitors as well. But these are just definitely, I'd say, the least comfortable seats out of everything this competes with. But you know, again, it's a track focused vehicle, probably not a huge deal. But just, you know, I don't think they're the most daily livable seats. By the way, they're also not even heated seats here or anything like that. Manual seats, no, you know, anything on them. But, you know, at least they're perforated, so that helps keep you a little cooler here in the summertime. And nice seats, you know, as far as the design goes. I think they look cool. Just wish they had a little more padding for the back. The steering wheel is also the same basic Z wheel. I like the red stripe at the top here, though. And you have the Alcantara around the 9 3 grip, which is a subjective thing, but I'm not crazy about that either. But I believe that's the only way they come. Another complaint I have with the steering wheel is you have plastic shift paddles. In a car that this one has tested is over $68,000, and these start at $66,000. Plastic shift paddles are just straight up unacceptable. And they have better paddles than the parts bin. They have metal paddles from the GTR that they've put in Q50s, Q60s, and other stuff as well. And I think even the 370Z had metal paddle shifters. And they've gone to plastic for the new Nismo here. It's just kind of crazy. And I mean, even a Hyundai Elantra N that's $35,000 has metal paddle shifters. Plastic paddle shifters in something this expensive is completely inexcusable. Totally uncool in my opinion. They're a good size, that's the only thing I can say about them, but other than that, they needed to do something nicer. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you know, it's all the same as a regular Z aside from the red start button and the drive mode selector, and there is an extra drive mode now for Sport Plus mode, but you know, so you just have that in there. You also have, you know, the Nismo script there on the gauges, but otherwise the gauges are identical to regular Z gauges as well, and you know, they're good gauges, so I like the way they look. The 9-inch touchscreen works pretty well, has wireless Apple CarPlay. It's slow every once in a while, but you know, the rest of it is mostly 370Z carryover stuff as far as the rest of the interior here. But you know, you have some padding by your knee and stuff, so it's not all low rent, but I mean, it's hands down the worst interior out of everything this competes with for, again, this price point and just the competitors, even some of the cheaper ones like the soon to be departed Camaro SS 1LE. Definitely still has a nicer interior than this, even in my opinion. But let's start it up and go for a drive. The Z Nismo here has the same Nissan key they've used for probably over a decade as well, just with the new Nissan logo in it. But you know, it's a small key and works fine. Of course, keyless access, keyless entry, push button start. So just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it hums to life. It's a nice exhaust note there on startup. Alright, so setting off here in the Z Nismo. So the first things you notice about the Nismo version, well, especially if you have experience with a regular Z, I spent a week with one last year and was on the launch event and drove them then. The first thing I think you'll notice, at least in my opinion, is that you have sharper steering, and I love it. It feels so nice and direct. The regular Z was definitely on the looser side with the steering as far as sports cars are concerned. You know, it still was better than the average car, but you you know, this is really sharp, and honestly, this is the kind of steering I wanted from the regular Z all along, and I think this, you know, more closely matches the Supra now and some of the other competitors, and just, I love the steering. It's so direct, it has a good amount of feel. Another thing I really love are the throttle response and the brake response. Nice and responsive brakes. I mean, they grab pretty hard pretty quickly, so you have to be a little more delicate with your brake inputs if you want to be, you know, buttery smooth with your stops, but it's really confidence inspiring, and you know, you can really feel that they really amped up the braking here for the Nismo version much better than the regular Z. Throttle response is also nice and snappy, really nice and quick, a little bit sharper in my opinion than the regular Z as well, and I'm really been appreciating that here in my few days that I've had with this vehicle. Other things here, so the ride is the one thing, you know, I saw some reviews saying the ride's not too bad. They must have been on really good roads, because at least here in the Pittsburgh area, you know, we have our fair share of potholes and imperfect pavement and stuff. It's stiff. It's stiff. I'd say it's stiffer than a Supra. It's definitely stiffer than all the other competitors, the M2s, the C8 Corvettes, you know, Mustangs, although I haven't driven the 2024 Mustang, but compared to the, you know, 23s, like a Mach 1 or something like that, you know, you just don't, you have no adaptive dampers here. They've stiffened everything up. You have stiffer springs, stiffer dampers, stiffer anti-roll bars, stiffer bushings, but none of, it's all passive stuff. So you're stuck with one setting, and some people might appreciate the simplicity, but everything else in this segment that this competes with has adaptive dampers, so you can kind of have the best of both worlds, have the stiffness when you want it, and then have it soft whenever you don't want the stiffness. So, you know, that's the one downside here of this whole setup, but, you know, I mean, it's, again, it's a race-focused vehicle, so I'm not going to complain about the ride, but with this compared to everything else it competes with, this wouldn't be my pick for the daily driver. This would be the last pick, I think, compared to everything else. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus mode, which, again, is exclusive to the Nismo version here, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. There we go. It pulls really nicely. It's really a nice sound too. But you might see the transmission is a little slow to respond still. This 9-speed automatic is what they forced you to have. No manual option here for the Nismo, which is really a strange choice in my opinion. They claim it's, you know, for faster lap times, and sure, that's fine. But, you know, that's always a weak argument, because these days, you know, sports cars are about engagement, and yes, you know, you can have better performance, but it's good to offer people the choice, and they have a manual, you know, already in the regular Z, so why not continue to offer that here for the Nismo version as well? Maybe they will down the road, which is disappointing, because, you know, this 9-speed, I haven't really done any aggressive driving in this car just yet until just now, but there's been even a few times just in normal mode where it's slow to give me downshifts, and even here in the Sport Plus mode, like 1, 2, oh, there we go, now we got some downshifts, and it's just, it's too slow with the response. Let's try again. Alright, so that was a little bit better that time. One good thing, you get some cracks and pops out of this exhaust, which I don't believe is an active exhaust either. It's one setting, and it does feel a little boomy every once in a while in normal mode, but, you know, it does sound great whenever you're getting on it. But it's just, again, it's going to be a commitment with this exhaust, because you don't have all the multi-modes like you do in all the competing vehicles with their exhaust. So just another thing to keep in mind. Now we're on this road that generates some extra road noise, a little bit of a rougher road here. And, you know, you certainly, you know, the tires do generate some noise, and there's not much sound insulation here. So, you know, it's going to be a little bit on the noisy side. But, you know, for a sports car, I have no complaints, honestly, with it. I don't think it's too bad. And I'll talk more about the engine here in a minute, but first we got some nice tight corners coming up here. Let's see how the Z Nismo handles with this stiffening of everything. There's also stiffer components in the chassis as well to, you know, give it more rigidity, and you know, it is really flat. It feels really good, and certainly more composure than regular Z. The Z was a little loose, and it was fun as a result. It was a little less serious. This is more serious. Whoa, whoa, that was crazy. All right, so this thing definitely likes to go sideways, and even though it's you know, pretty warm day, we're in the 60s here, this thing doesn't have a ton of grip in the back end there. That was actually caught me off guard. This is one of the first cars to really surprise me with that much. And I have, by the way, traction control is still on Sport Plus mode. They did adjust this stability control to give you you know, a little bit of extra leeway, I suppose, but there's a lot of leeway. It seems like Sport Plus mode, at least, there was no intervention there as I was just going sideways. And I wasn't honestly pushing it that much. I don't really push these cars very much. So that's a pretty unstable back end. That was actually worse stability than what I had in the regular Z. That was surprising. Very, very interesting here. I mean, these tires seem like they have a decent amount of meat on them. They are wider tires, by the way, too, in the back. 285s now versus 275s on a regular performance package. But this thing is definitely tail happy and will bite back. So be warned, this thing is, yeah, it's not quite as well sorted as the competitors are, where you can push those a little more. They're a little more progressive. That could just also be these tires, too, these Dunlop SP Sport Max. They're summer tires. You know, and like I said, we're well within the operating limits of them, but they don't seem like they have a lot of grip from at least my experience here. So, very interesting there. Other things to note. So, you know, I mean, otherwise it handles really well. You do have a little bit of extra weight gain here. These are about 3,704 pounds now. So they are about 100 pounds heavier than a regular automatic Z Performance. Part of that's just the fact they force you into the automatic. That's 66 pounds already. So compared to a manual Z Performance, you're about 166 pounds or so extra. And so, you know, it's not the most ideal thing. Again, I think it would be great to offer the manual, but I mean, otherwise, you know, it's still very low to the ground, very, you know, sharp handling, and I don't feel like it's heavy, especially with everything else this competes with, which is actually heavier. This is one of the lightest ones in the group, you know, so as far as that goes, I think that is one of the perks here of the Z Nismo, is the fact that, you know, it's, yes, heavier than a, you know, 370 Z Nismo, but it's lighter than most of the other stuff out there, and so it is certainly nice. It does feel a little lighter, a little simpler, a little smaller than most of the competitors as well. So if you're cross-shopping this with a, you know, M2 or, you know, Mustang or Camaro or you know, even like a C8 Corvette is, you know, really in the same price point at this point. You know, that's another one. You know, they're all going to feel, I think, a little bigger and you know, just a little bit heavier than this. And I'm going to try an acceleration from a stop. They did revise launch control, but I'm not going to try it because these tires don't seem like they like gripping very much. Okay, well, there's traction control kicked in for a second there, and yeah, I mean, it pulls really nicely, and thankfully it was able to keep it together there in a straight line at least. But yeah, you can turn traction control off. There's a separate button here for that. But while we are doing some accelerations here, let's try out the manual mode and see how that does. Okay, pretty quick downshifts. Man, this thing is twitchy. I literally just floored it and upshifted with, you know, a little bit of steering angle, and it's twitching out on me. I mean, this thing is, it is dicey. I honestly, you'd have to be extra careful in the rain. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just these tires, but this is one of the most white-knuckle review experiences I've had in a while, as far as not having a ton of faith in a car's grip, to be totally honest. It's funny and it's edgy, and it really, you know, will keep you on your toes if that's something you like. You know, that's great, but honestly, it's almost a little terrifying, and I don't have a ton of confidence in these tires, sadly. Now I'll do some manual shifts for my stop here. Wow, yeah, this thing this thing is a wild beast. It's fun, but man, this thing, you really got to know what you're doing to drive this thing. I am envisioning lots of these on Copart because, man, this thing, you really got to be on your A game if you're ever trying to push this thing at all whenever you're driving it. And anyway, so as far as the power goes, I didn't even go over the specs of that yet because I'm so preoccupied on the handling here, but it's the 3-liter twin-turbo V6 engine as a regular Z, just 20 more horsepower, 34 more pound-feet of torque, so it's 420 horsepower, 384 pound-feet of torque total. And actually with this, the Nismo tune, it's a slightly narrower power band for the torque, at least. It comes on 400 RPM later, and it drops off 400 RPM sooner, so you have a little less to work with. Obviously, it's a little bit stronger whenever it is in its prime, but there's just less of that prime to work with than a regular Z. All right, I'm gonna really take this gingerly because this thing is definitely trying to step out at every opportunity. And it's, you know, it's not like it's a ton of power. I have, you know, more power in my Mustang Bullets with 275 wide tires in the back, and that puts down power coming out of corners better than this does. And like I said, I actually had more confidence with the regular Z, even though it was looser. It wasn't fishtailing on me like this thing's desperately trying to do. It's like, this car's like, it feels like it's trying to kill me. I mean, again, if you love that kind of thing, there's been some cars throughout history that have felt like that, and they are very invigorating to drive. But who, man, like I said, it's this car took me by surprise more than most other cars as far as really being a little sketchier with the handling, if I'm totally honest. Thankfully, though, to rein in the madness of this car's handling, you do have 1-inch larger brake rotors in the front there. They're 4-piston brakes, 15-inch rotors there on these brakes, and so that helps you. In the back, though, they're the same 2-piston brakes you get from a regular Z Performance, and so, you know, but it's not that much extra power, so I think the beefier front brakes is enough to, you know, compensate for the, you know, slight edge in performance there. But you know, like I said, it's great that they grab quickly at least, and they are strong, so they will hopefully curtail anything that happens if this car does decide to step out on you unexpectedly. But you know, otherwise, now this road is nice and smooth, and, you know, on good pavement, there's really nothing to complain about with this vehicle. But, you know, I did a few errands at, you know, slow speeds with this already, and, you know, it's stiff. It's, you know, and the Supra's not buttery smooth either. I'd say that's, you know, on the stiffer side compared to the, you know, the Camaro and the Mustang and even, you know, the M2 and the C8. But, you know, it's just, you know, this is a car that obviously it's track focused. I think if you're wanting a daily drivable Z, go for the regular one. I feel like the Nismo isn't probably going to be the best daily driver, especially now knowing about its very edgy back end there. You know, I would not want to drive this in anything other than dry weather, to be completely honest, and warm weather at that too. I do like the hum of this V6. It's a really nice soundtrack to listen to. If you don't like listening to that soundtrack, though, you also do have this Bose stereo as standard here in the Nismo version, and you know, it's nice to throw that in as well, you know, to help, I guess, cope with this higher price tag a little bit at least. There are some crackles and pops, which I didn't get with the regular manual Z at least, and so this does sound great. I'm really loving this exhaust, and just the punch is great. I mean, in a straight line, this car feels awesome. I love the way it sounds. I love the way that it goes. You know, the shifts are nice and quick for sure with this 9-speed, but I still, again, would rather be rowing my own gears with a manual for sure. And now we're out on the highway here in the Z Nismo, and you know, so this is, you know, 60 miles an hour on the highway. And, you know, again, it's still some road noise. I mean, these are not well-insulated vehicles, as Nismo version especially, that's not the concern. But another way that, you know, this is just noisier in here than everything else this competes with as far as, you know, road noise. So I feel like that also is another demerit against the daily drivability of this vehicle. But, you know, it is nice that, you know, being the automatic and all that, you do have adaptive cruise control. So that's nice. Like I said, the Bose stereo, and I feel the, you know, creature comforts there. The last couple of things to mention here are the fuel economy and the pricing and how this compares to the competition. And I really got a lot to say about the pricing. But first off, fuel economy, these are rated at 17 mpg in the city, 24 on the highway, and 19 combined. I haven't driven this vehicle enough to really get a good estimate as far as my personal driving around here goes, but, you know, it's just worth noting that, you know, this is a 9-speed automatic and you're still only getting 24 mpg on the highway. It's a little disappointing considering my Mustang can pull off almost 30 with a 6-speed manual, and, you know, I mean, it's just, it seems like they could do a little bit better. Maybe it's just underrated. In the real world, you will see some better fuel economy there on the highway, but just worth noting those are the numbers the EPA rates it at. Now, as far as the pricing, that is really honestly the biggest problem with the Z. I mean, again, there's lots of other things here that are imperfect, and I've, you know, stated those very plainly, but I think even if this were the most amazing car ever and it didn't have all the other downsides that I just mentioned, the pricing just completely ruins any hype for this car. In addition to the fact that you can't get it with a manual, because this starts at $66,000, and this one as tested is over $68,000 for illuminated sill plates, which this car doesn't even have. For some reason, it's on the window sticker, floor mats, and then the special paints, like $1,200 or something. So, you know, it's not like this has extravagant options to boost it up. So you can get one of these, I'm sure, into the 70s if you want to add a few more options on. But you know, that price point is it's just downright bad. A regular Z Performance with the automatic is, you know, over $10,000 cheaper, and this gives you 20 extra horsepower, 34 more pound-feet of torque. And yes, it's sharper, and yes, it's stiffer, and it's probably faster around the track, but it's, to me, sketchier, and it's a lot of extra money for not much extra car. It's not a wildly different experience from a regular Z. And admittedly, I have not driven a regular Z with the automatic. I've only driven the manuals, but, you know, again, it's the same transmission even as far as that, because I think the shifts are a little faster, they say. But, you know, it's really just not a huge difference for a huge upcharge. And, you know, that would be bad enough on its own, just comparing it with its own Z family, you know. But then you add in the competitors out there and what they offer for the same or less or slightly more money. So let's get into a few of the competitors here. The main ones I'm going to mention. The first one that's, I think, the most compelling is the BMW M2. You can get it with an automatic. It's the quicker ZF 8-speed automatic, which is fantastic. It's a great torque converter automatic, one of the best out there, if not the best. Or you can get those with a manual. And it's an actual luxury branded vehicle, an M2. I mean, far nicer interior, so much more luxurious, more power, way more power. You know, you're almost, you know, 480 horsepower or whatever in those. I've driven those. They're great. They have adaptive dampers. Everything that this competes with has adaptive dampers. This does not. And those are $53,000. There's very few options you can add on to them. They come basically fully loaded up. And it's so, you know, between whether you're going for a base Nismo or one of these like this one is, you know, equipped, you're looking at least, you know, $3,000 to $5,000 savings for a luxury BMW with way more horsepower, with way more composure, way more confidence-inspiring handling, in my opinion. And just, you have a little more space. It has a back seat, you know, a little more practical, a little more daily drivable. I would totally daily an M2. Would not daily drive this, again, for all the reasons I've mentioned. Now, yes, they're a little bit heavier. They're a little higher off the ground. You know, it's not quite as, you know, focused on track performance as this car is, and so if you are a track rat, this might be the best choice out there for you. But I think there might be some other choices I'll get to in a second. But, you know, I just think for the average enthusiast, just get an M2 and call it a day. You know, there's other options as well, though. I mean, it's 68 grand. That's what a C8 Corvette starts at. And yes, you can actually get a base C8 Corvette if you order one. And yes, it's still a nice interior. It still has a better interior than this does for the same price. It's a mid-engine, almost 500 horsepower V8 car for the same exact money. And it's definitely better, safer handling, less edgy than this. I mean, again, if you like the edgy thing and you want a car that feels like it's trying to kill you, knock yourself out with the Z Nismo. But, you know, C8 just for me was a much better handling, more sorted car. And then, you know, also from General Motors, you have the Camaro SS. Now, that's going away shortly here, so, you know, it's one of those things. If you can grab one, technically there are 2024s, so this is technically a competitor for a few months here. You know, and obviously it's not fair to compare used stuff, but a brand new 2SS fully loaded Camaro 1LE with the wider tires. They're very composed, very grippy. They have active exhaust, you know, still an interior that's just as nice as this, in my opinion. Those are $56,000. You know, even wider tires than this has. It's just better, and it's just a more composed vehicle, more confidence inspiring, a better track car, in my opinion, I think, and the option for a manual. And then the last one that I'll mention here is the new 2024 Mustang, which I have not driven. Again, it shares a lot, most of it, with the regular S550 from before, which I have extensive experience with, and that's just, again, a better car. Now, with, you know, the way they've increased the prices on those, you know, a dark horse that's comparably equipped, that has its track package, which is a very pricey package, but gives you even wider tires than this, more handling composure. Again, it is a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, a little bit higher off the ground. But, you know, those are 72, and you're talking at 68 for this already, and that has bigger screens, more tech, you know, the active exhaust, the adaptive dampers, things that are worth the extra money, by the way, like really good things that are worth the $4 grand upcharge. But I think that is also a better buy, even without driving it, just based on what you get per dollar. The extra adjustability with the drive modes, which there is no way to customize drive modes here in this or anything like that. Again, that is also offered with a manual in addition to the 10-speed automatic. And so, you know, it's just, everywhere you turn, if you do any cross-shopping whatsoever, this comes up short. This ends up being the loser in all the ways. It's the worst daily driver. It's the worst from an interior standpoint. It's the worst from a handling standpoint, in my opinion. It's actually the worst from a power standpoint, and it's the worst from a pricing standpoint. And if Nissan had tried to undercut the pricing of the others, or if they had tried to offer some edge or some niche, you know, I would say maybe there could be a case made for this. You know, I don't think it looks bad. I like the styling of the new Zs here. I'm glad that it is back. I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth here, but you know, it's just, they just screwed up the pricing, the positioning, and just the what they offer for your money. Everyone just does it better. And you know, I didn't want to hate on the Z Nismo, and I think in a vacuum, if you're a Nismo diehard fan and you have a blank check to write, have fun. It's great. I'm glad it's out there for the handful of people that are, you know, fine paying whatever for the newest thing with a Nismo badge on it. But if you have any kind of openness to other cars and other brands, there's just, this makes zero sense. And it's unfortunate. Again, I very rarely, you know, really come up disappointed in a car. I think this is one of the most disappointing cars in several years, in my opinion, for all those reasons I mentioned. If you must have a Z, I like the regular Z. I still think there's better stuff as far as that goes as well. I'm not going to get into all that again, but you know, I think that there's, I like the regular Z better. I can see a case for the regular Z in certain instances. I can't see a case for the Nismo whatsoever, in any case, in any instance. So, you know, it's, you know, some ways I think they've actually managed to make it worse, you know, in as far as positioning and stuff. But anyway, that is my verdict here on the Z Nismo. I wish I was able to say better things about it, but I'm always honest, I'm always open, and just say things as they come to me and how I feel about them. And unfortunately, I just don't have a lot of love here for the Z Nismo. But that's all of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the Z Nismo in the comments below. Thank you very much to Nissan for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.